Sometimes you do have to wonder if reality or God, who has brought us into this place, isn't a giant troll. Because why the hell do we come into this existence and then he's just like, okay, be on your own and suffer what you must. And then it feels like it is all just a giant joke because of how pointless it is. It is the question of why do we exist? Just to suffer? And then there's also the sense that reality has a sort of jester quality to it. That when you look too deep into the nature of reality, you kind of become Joker, where the nihilism consumes you so much that the only reasonable course of action is to laugh, to look at the silliness of it all. Because there's really no aspect of reality that isn't somewhat silly. If you really zoom in how we got here as humanity, as just these current times, by warring and killing each other for our own egotistical benefit, but then we all just die anyway and nothing really matters. We care so much about survival as if it is the most important thing ever. But then if we look outside into the universe, it does seem like that our survival is really meaningless. Like imagine you are the dinosaurs living for like millions of years and then suddenly just comes a comet and it's all over. It is very, very tragic if it wasn't also kind of funny. It is funny how much we delude ourselves in mattering more than we actually do. And when we start to grasp how little we actually do matter, you can either fall into complete despair or you start to find the silliness of it all. You start to see that it is almost kind of funny that you thought that all of this human drama that you thought is so real is actually quite insignificant. Now, I was watching the news recently about the protests that have been going on all over the world, and then I went to my garden and saw the bee consuming the flower. And I became aware again of how animals have literally zero awareness of what is actually going on around them or what is going around other species. They just follow their natural instincts and they are very much immersed in their own world. And they could care less about politics or your personal health or your finances. They live in a completely different world. And when you start to empathize with bee reality, all of these human mental narratives that we run about our civilization and the future of humanity, it starts to be put into perspective. But then in the same vein, do you know how many animals are warring against each other all the time? There are endless amount of ant colonies who are trying to fight for their own survival, and we really don't care about them at all. So then we must ask, are we maybe like ants for God? Or are we like a little experiment that is just being observed and then played around with? And actually, God is not taking us seriously at all and is just waiting for our own demise, which in a way it is self-created because we are one of the few species who have the capability of actually destroying ourselves. Okay, so where's all of this going? If life is just a joke, then why take anything seriously? Then why not become the Joker and become a huge jester and troll everybody by, I don't know, blowing up a nuke or something? I think the reality of actual war or actual destruction once it is in front of you, well, now it's not so funny anymore, isn't it? Now the trolling has become serious and we are not so, we are not a fan of it anymore. It's always when the joke is on us that it stops being funny. Then you have to wonder, if God is a troll, isn't he somewhat evil? Isn't he just playing with us in a kind of morbid, nihilistical way for his own pleasure? And there's like a certain credence to this idea that cannot be denied. If you look at reality kind of objectively and see how each organism, be it an ant, a bee, or a human, is just always a part of such a larger system that whenever you break the system down, it is kind of natural to not take it so serious anymore. But when you really take the perspective of the individual, then, well, it is really everything, and it matters everything to you. So, from the highest perspective, if you were to imagine being like a god, you could imagine it as kind of a weird superposition where you simultaneously care about everything equally and have it to very high regard, which is often when people talk about everything being love or everything just being appreciated exactly for how it is. But then also this appreciation for everything being how it is also lets you to actually mess around with it a lot and maybe do some weird experiments with it, because you understand that from higher perspectives, it really doesn't matter as much as you think it does, and everything can be loved exactly how it is, even if from the individual perspective, it does seem pretty much insane and not funny at all. But you can also find that among humans, the more lighthearted you confront life, or the more silliness you can incorporate, even in serious moments, the happier I tend to be. Why is that? What is this correlation between kind of existential peace and this ability to laugh in even horrible situations? And I do think that here, humor shows us that it kind of lends us into, this insight that at the core of reality, there's just a giant joke. That when you really look at how ridiculously chaotic it all is, that laughing seems to be the normal reaction, or like the reasonable reaction. The difficulty here is to not confuse laughing as a general appreciation for the chaos of it all and laughing as a sort of coping mechanism where we just look at dark humor and laugh about it because we actually don't want to empathize with it. We don't want to actually feel how the suffering on the other side is quite real. I think this is why self-deprecating humor can be so damaging, because we might think that it is a way we cope with our dark reality, but we are actually laughing about ourselves to keep us down, to not take ourselves seriously in ways where we actually should take ourselves more seriously. But then also, if we are able to laugh at more serious moments of our life, we can let go. We can be not so stuck up in our own individual narrative, and we can see that on the large scheme of things, it really doesn't matter so much. And then it starts to become quite funny. Taking life less serious as an individual, despite its personal significance, is also a very important point of spiritual insight, because the moment you reach into a deep understanding of reality itself, often the normal reaction is to laugh, and it is to be delighted, and you start to become a more happy and also silly person because of it, at least if you practice it with a type of emotional openness. I think a very big red flag of any spiritual teacher is if the person has lost the ability to laugh. Because usually the lightheartedness of reality becomes quite apparent at deep stages of insight. This is also the reason why when you drop this entire concept of becoming a more spiritual person or trying to gain like some deep insight into the nature of reality as a personal thing that you can accomplish, once you see the illusionary nature of even this entire construct or this entire story, then life also becomes more fun because you take your own life less serious. And by taking your own life less serious, you also take more daring decisions and you actually put in risk to accomplish your dreams. To be able to do this though, it is very important you let go of all types of spiritual concepts. For this, I really recommend you watch this video next.